YouTube. Hello, I'm Eagle, Eagle Gardens 1 on Instagram. This is fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 420. Holy cow, this one came up way too fast. We have got one amazing night ahead of us tonight. I have been waiting for this opportunity for a very long time. I have Mr. Spliff here with me tonight. You want to tell us how we're doing and, of course, where they can find you, my friend?
So let's start it off with this. I hope it's loud enough.
Strong, fight, bold, strip back George Lucas, chainsaw power bomb, stop it out, leader.
I miss those videos. You can find me on Instagram, Mr. Spliff Cannabis. That's pretty much where I post most of my content. I used to do a bunch of YouTube videos. We deleted those channels like 2015 or something. We're going to get some more going. We're thinking about doing some podcasts and things like that. But right now we're doing a bunch of breeding, and a lot of that is on Instagram. You'll see a lot of the different phenos that we're selecting and mothers we're working with and the dads we've selected, and you'll find a lot of really cool stuff there.
Really appreciate you taking the time to hang out. And I just want to point out the fact that I watched him hand roll that big old split. Hand roll. Pretty amazing, too.
I get a lot of comments back in 20.
My
God, when would it have been?
Nothing near as impressive.
Hey, I've got a lot of practice, and in 2006, I went to Germany. I went for the World Cup, played soccer my whole life, and I met a bunch of cats that rolled joints like they knew how to do this proper, like, and my joints were so bad. Oh my gosh, like they were just these mangled. I tried to put the filter tip in the back after the fact. They looked terrible, and I learned real quick because we hung out in Frankfurt, Germany for a couple of months when we were there in Europe, and if there was a bad joint circling, they would blame it on me. And this was like, this kind of hard to deal with. And so I had a lesson early on, and then I just kept rolling them. And I've been a craftsman my whole life, carpenter. And so there's a few technical things that make this work well and easy. There's the camera. But we rolled this joint on Farmer John's YouTube channel back in the day, and people still come up to me. They're like, dude, I watch that video all the time because it teaches me how to roll my joints. I'm just like, that's a lot of fun. I don't know if I have my truck. I do. I've had the truck ashtray for as long as I've been growing herb. And there's people that also remember me from this thing. This thing's broken like 4 or 5 times. My wife glues it and screws it because it's her project, but nothing like a fat booter. So hello YouTube, and I guess it's YouTube world, right? We're on Zoom. They're watching live on YouTube. Okay, excellent. Hello YouTube world. It's nice to see you, and it's been a long time since I've done videos, and I got this opportunity, and it's a lot of fun for me. We used to do lots of events, and I miss those days of cups and getting to meet all these people. And for me, that was a amazing experience. I met Subcool because I met Jinx Proof through Craigslist way back in the day when I was still going to Amsterdam to get seeds, and I found this dude selling TGA genetics on Craigslist, and I was like, there's no way these seeds are real. And I got a hold of him, and he had legitimate seeds, and I got them. I immediately started growing them out, and my very first crop of TGA stuff was Cheesequake, and that was perfectly timed for the first School of Dank. And I can remember, I think we spoke about it last time, and I went upstairs to sit and hang out on this deck that was on the upper terrace, and I sit down and I'm rolling a joint. And I'd never met Subcool. I didn't even, you know, before I met Jinx Proof and knew what TGA really was, I knew of Subcool as a photographer because he used to work with the DNA guys with Reserva Privada and take all these photos. And so I'd always seen his name in catalogs, and I was like, man, this guy's been around forever. But I'd grown out Cheesequake, and I was still kind of learning what's what. And this dude comes upstairs. I knew Sub was coming that night, but I didn't know what he looked like. And this dude comes up with his long hair and his freaking his purple glasses and his little green hat. And then here comes this chick in this weed dress, you know, weed leaves all over. I was like, that's got to be Sub and Jill. And he sits down right next to me. He asked me if he could sit next to me, and I'm like, uh-huh, you know. And I gave him a jar of Cheesequake, and that's where Sub and I fell in love. And, you know, we had a very unique brotherly relationship. He's definitely sad when I left TGA, but, you know, so goes life, you know. And he was somebody I admired, hardest working dude I had met in the weed industry, hands down. He could work 16-hour days back to back to back to back over and over again, and he loved doing it. You know, that was like watching the Weed Nerd. He loved doing those shows. That's why I love stuff like this, because what's better as a ganja lover than to be able to sit back and smoke a joint and watch people talking about weed or something that is related to the garden, and especially a personality like Sub. You know, he loved to rock out. He loved the smoke. And could you hear the clip that I played in the beginning?
Yes. Yes.
Good. That's one of those iconic things. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. I can't think of a seed company right now. What is it? Dreddy Jeff. Why can't I think? Irie Genetics. He does a like a podcasty show, and he does the same kind of homage intro. And it's interesting to see the print.
Rasta Jeff.
What's that?
That's Rasta Jeff.
Rasta right? Jeff. That's right. Yeah. 6 foot, like 5 million, super tall, really sweet, really nice. But he does his show, and he has that kind of same intro that pays homage to the Weed Nerd. And you know, my favorite picture of Subcool is the Weed Nerd knuckles when they finally dried out and they're all black, and he's in his red shirt. And I think it's from like 2.5, 3 years ago. It's weird with him not being here. You know, I don't like sit and tear up about it like always or anything, but it's odd to think of such a beast, such a rad dude. You know, we all got our faults and our issues, but that Subcool was one of a kind. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. I definitely miss him very, very much. And you know, if it wasn't for him, a lot of these shows wouldn't even be a beautiful ass on the big old giant. Wouldn't even be a thing. He started, particularly, I think, the whole want to hang out in a live chat. You know what I mean? I think we all kind of contribute that to him and the Weed Nerd thing.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. I'm trying for show. I don't have your show pulled up to look at the comments, and I probably should have done that.
You can just bring up Eagle Gardens, and it should show us as live, and click on it. And when it pulls up, just pause the video and click top our live chat. Even though
okay, there we go.
The chat will keep rolling.
All right, so let's see.
Now, when it brings up the chat, you have to bring up live chat. There's top chat and live chat. So one of the things I was trying to say is one beautiful thing about doing this show in the last year, almost year and a half now, is I've had so many of Sub's friends on, so many weed nerds, and they've told awesome stories about Sub. The side that, like the side that we talked about, like off air, you know what I mean? The other side of Sub that I talk of, man, I've said that for years, man. There's two sides of that dude, man. There's the on air and there's the off air Sub. And
yeah,
the off air Sub is an amazing dude. And night after night as I get, people on that are weed nerds, old friends, amazing stories about sub trickle out that contradict all of the bullshit. You know what I mean? It's sad that it's taken a passing, but people are very much waking up to the real person sub was. And
Yeah,
it's nice
I
to see
the
some
sub
kind of
cool,
redemption
the
for
sub
that
that
man.
I know, like I said, especially as men in the industry, like trying to fight ego and friendships and being in his position where everybody wanted something from him, and he put on so many people that a few of them definitely didn't show the respect that needed to be given to somebody that was a trailblazer for so long. And there's only one subpool. I can say that he was one of those few people that I was always excited to see. He had $1 million smile, and seeing him off camera or after the event was over, because when the event, say we were at High Times or something, and it was rolling, I mean, he was subcool to a T for 14 hours straight from the time it opened until the last person got their pack signed or whatever it was. And uh, I haven't really talked to. I can remember the day he passed. I talked to Will, and then I talked to Kyle Cushman about 20 minutes later, and Will called me to tell me. Um, it was such a weird thing, because I've lost a lot of friends. I shouldn't say a lot of friends, but enough friends to be familiar with the situation. But it's like with Subcool, you knew he had so much more work to do, and he had so many more people to inspire, and it was tough to see him get kind of beat up on his way out. But uh, I think that who he was intended to be lives on through that hole that is left inside of us, right? Because he's that dude that. So he was exciting to watch. There was a few other people doing cannabis shows, but Sub was magnetic. He was a personality, and he knew it, and it wasn't like he put on airs. He was genuinely that dude. He loved to rock out, listen to Tool, smoke weed, and be a dude. And he is also a very loving mentor. Like I've seen tough sides of him. I've and mm, I've seen a lot of sides, and all good things, but it's just tough to see somebody that was so big be gone. And that's why we made a few tribute strains. And I mean, we give them away as freebies as part of packages. They're like, if people buy a pack of seeds at one of the banks, we like to give the tribute strains away because it would break my heart at this point to ever like charge for one of those packs, because it's just, there's got to be some amount of honor. And so I don't know, I miss Sub. I know he clearly meant so much to so many people. I mean, that's just tough, and I know a lot of people that really, really loved him. And he's a good team leader. Sub was somebody that always inspired me, and kind of like a father figure. Like when you did well and he was aware of it, he let you know. Like if you did something that, if you grew something out, or you did a presentation, or you were doing something at an event, he recognized effort and consistency. And Sub was fucking rad, dude. So, what I should be wearing right now is I have my old like TGA Mr. Spliff jacket. Damn, I wish I had that out. One of the nicest jackets I've ever owned. My wife and I both got one, and um, Those were the days. It was crazy, man. But yeah. When was the first time you met Sub?
A long time ago, long time ago. It's been 2010,
Okay, so you knew
2010.
before I did.
And it's I do miss that cat. He opened a lot of doors for me, and still to this day is opening doors for me.
Dude, I
The
wouldn't be
connections I
Mr.
met through that
Spliff.
cat.
Yeah, he was a he put a lot of people on, like I said, and I went from being so I get a lot of people that approach me like I'm some kind of forgive me for using the name celebrity because that's not what I mean, but like I would go to cups and people would ask me for my autograph all the time, and I was like, what the fuck? My wife and I were both like, this is crazy. And I went from being somebody that was a really small 2 light gardener to being all over the weed nerd and sub seeing my weed and putting it on a couple of videos and being like, oh my God, this shit is absolutely insane. And it was episode 48, I think 49 and 50 or 51 when he'd come to Seattle for a pizza party. I gave him a bunch of like cheesequake hash and stuff. And him putting me on the weed nerd blew me up. And I don't know if you remember back, like when he was doing some of the earlier, when it changed from the Daily Show to the Weed Nerd, he would have like TC doing like small videos from his garden. And so when it was Jinx Proof and myself and Farmer John and a few other guys that were up here kind of representing Washington, and so they came to my house to make a video to put on the Weed Nerd. And I was like, okay, cool. I had like really fire plants and blah blah blah. And I was growing out Chernobyl, Rip Bubba, and Cheesequake, Dairy Queen, and a few other TGA strains at the time. And Jinx Proof and the cameraman came to my house, and they're like, "Dude, we're gonna make this video." They're like, "We're starting it in like 10 seconds. What's your weed name?" And I was like, "Weed name?" like subcool or dioxide. Like, what's your weed name? And I was like, "Fuck, I have no idea." And they're like, "Well, think of one like right now." And I was like, Mr. Spliff. And just like that, that's where it landed. And that's where I kind of had like this name. And all because of Subcool putting me on. And sure, I was a decent gardener, but my point of this story was I wasn't anybody big. I wasn't anybody known. I wasn't anybody connected. I was a dude that was dealing with his mom fighting cancer. I had to quit my framing job. I had one light at the time. I had ended up getting a second light. I was working out of a 5x7 closet. I had lifted my bed 5 feet in the air to have a veg garden underneath it. Like, dude, I had no space, no money, no nothing. And I was just good at work. I worked hard. I was consistent. I didn't make errors. And then all of a sudden, this guy came along and put me on and was like, he was a fan of my work, obviously, but I was I was very unknown. I dare not use the word insignificant because the point of the story is you never know when your time is coming. And be ready because you never know when you're just going to get an introduction to somebody that maybe a week, maybe a day, maybe a year, all of a sudden opens up this door. And be ready. It's like this world has so many opportunities, and I, I don't watch football. I'm not huge into sports, but I saw Tom Brady talking one time. He's like, you realize they took out Drew Bledsoe because he was just not doing well in the game and put me in. And all of a sudden I became like greatest quarterback in the whole wide world because I took that moment. And I remembered that for a long time because I was an athlete my whole life. And so unfortunately, Sub is gone, but behind him comes a bunch of opportunity through people that were associated with the Weed Nerd and with TGA and Subcool's work that we can come together and create these new opportunities like this show. And Thank you, by the way, for putting the show together and having me. I can talk a lot, so it's nice to have a place to talk. Oh my god. Anyway,
And no, I'm honored to have you on and to hear the stories, man.
mm,
I I love to hear the stories, and not only do I love to hear the stories, I want other people to hear the stories. You know what
fair
I'm
enough.
saying? Not just
Yeah.
about subs, but you as well. Which kind of reminds me, as I'm sure he will come swinging back into the conversation at some point. Let's get to know Mr. Spliff a little bit. When was your first time with cannabis? When did Lady Cannabis enter your life before all this? Tell us about that.
So I grew up as, I guess you could call it a troubled youth. I had um, I had a very interesting family dynamic. Nothing crazy, but a very intense situation growing. And I was really good at soccer, like really just very athletically gifted, and soccer was just something that um, came very naturally to me. I I probably could have gone as far as I wanted, and when I was 11, I started experiencing massive issues with my knees, and then I had my surgeries in high school, and I used to have a lot of scouts at my games, and then one day they just stopped coming because of my injuries, and there was a lot of things in my life that left me feeling not hopeless, but I guess what I'm getting at is cannabis is a uniquely comforting thing that we have on earth, right? Because if you would relate it to something like extreme, like cocaine or alcohol, that completely debilitates you and keeps you from being able to function in a normal fashion, like cannabis is something that is one of those pats on the back from God. It's like as tough as life can be. So when I was 14, uh, I I can remember the first time I bought weed. I was in high school. I approached one of the bad girls that I knew that smoked marijuana, and I said, "Can you get me one of those dub sacks?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I said, "How much?" She said, uh, $20, dude. And I was like, oh, that's why they called it a dub sack. So got a 20 sack, smoked the entire thing off of a pop can on a swing set out back to school at like 4:30 in the afternoon. Like teachers were still there. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. In a decent neighborhood, so people probably wouldn't have honestly been completely hip to it right away. But mm, I got so big, like so big. I can remember walking home from the school, and like halfway through it, it was like I was in a dream. I literally was just lit. This chick obviously could get good weed. And I went home. My brother looked at me. He was 2 years younger. He's like, "What the fuck did you do?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Something's up." He's like, "Oh, dude, I smoked pot for the first time." He's like, "Oh, I ate an entire box of cereal and like a bag of cookies. Like I had never been so hungry in my life." And so with all the injuries and stress that I'd endured, and literally playing soccer 7 days a week and just doing all this stuff that was expected of me, and not boo-hooing by any means, but cannabis all of a sudden came into my life, and it was heavily resisted by my parents, like heavily resisted. And so that got me into a lot of trouble coming up. And uh, I was always independent. I didn't really give a shit what anybody thought. I was going to do my own thing anyway. And so I continued to get in trouble with it until I moved out on my own. And like any typical 19-year-old entrepreneur, I started getting into having lots of cannabis in my life. And um, I don't remember the last time I didn't smoke weed. There was times that I was put on probation and stuff, but I met cannabis when I was 14, and it came at a time in my life when I had a lot of questions, and I had a lot of you know, just as far as the grand scale of life, like, God, is it really this hard all the time? And as much as I hate to say cannabis gave me that place to disappear, you know, it's like between that and music, it was a extracurricular activity that was mine, and it was time, it was me time in a sense. And you know, there's cannabis is amazing, and the more I learned about it, the more I was really just like, holy crap. I can remember being in 8th grade and then in 9th grade and then saying that cannabis changes your DNA, and there it was like this scare tactic. And through time, I'd researched and finally found out that cannabis is one of the few compounds on Earth, the Delta 9, that reconfigures your DNA and helps reset it to its original formulation. And so as we incur sicknesses and whatever else, cannabis resets your body. It's a internal bioremedial compound, and it really did a lot for me as a youth, helped me deal with a lot of things. And then as I, you know, became an adult and moved through my life, it was 2010 when my mom got sick with cancer. And I, you know, you hear it on the news. Well, as weed heads, we would always defend the medical side of it because we wanted it to be legal, and we knew that it helped in some senses. But you know, I'd never seen it firsthand, and my mom was basically dying and had cancer, MRSA, 2 other blood infections, like a whole bunch of stuff, and like lived with me. And I never got sick. And as soon as I started spiking the coffee every morning with hash, I make bubble hash and spike the coffee. All of a sudden, she got better, like immediately. All of a sudden, she had energy and was running around, and I was like, "Holy shit! Like this is crazy. How? Okay, wow." And then the oncologist was like, "Oh my gosh, what is going on?" He couldn't figure it out until one day I came to a meeting, and he's like, "Dude, you stink, bro." And I was like, "Oh yeah, sorry." I like go herb at home, and you know, he's like, "Is that why your mom's getting better? I can't figure it out." I was like, "Oh, I've been spiking the coffee for like 2 months," and so we had a long conversation about that. And so as soon as that happened, that's when I started gardening cannabis. Like it wasn't until I actually saw it help my mom and save her life that I became like, dude, I need to grow this. And literally a year later, I met Sub, and I was, I'm crazy about anything I do. I get overly invested or into it. I don't know. I'm obsessive like that. But so I met it at a young age, and then roughly 15 years later was when it saved my mom, and that would have been 2010, and that's when my whole career kind of started. And I, you know, Farmer John got me onto YouTube. He's like, "Dude, you got to do YouTube." I was like, "How do you YouTube?" He's like, "Are you must be caveman." I was like, "For sure, dude." Like, I feel like Zoolander with the Macintosh computers when they're fucking smacking them. Like, so Farmer John convinces me to do YouTube and then Instagram, and that leads me to meeting people like you, because years later somehow I was able and brave enough and sociable enough to make content that people watched. And what a blessing, man. What a blessing to be able to meet so many people and have people tell me their story and get to tell my story, all because of cannabis. So hopefully that's not like an overly extended answer to when did you first meet cannabis, but you know, that's how I met this girl. I love smoking weed, man. The first time I blew smoke out, I was like, wow, that's really neat. So kind of started there too. I drink a shitload of coffee too, man. Light roast, black, just all fucking day. I gotta look at this chat thing. Um,
Thank goodness for a quick bounce back.
Issues with the feed.
Yeah. But we were still live. It didn't cut the live feed at all. So
you
I'd
know.
like to say, man, as far as first experiences or building a relationship with cannabis, man, talk about some strong, deep roots, brother. Uh, Very impactful, man, especially with the part about your mom and actually seeing the part as a medicine work. I mean, usually takes a lot of people quite a bit of a into their journey before they actually get that deep with the relationship with cannabis. And for
Right.
me and for others, you see the impact of what it could really do, but then I don't know. This for me, I find true, and you could maybe tell me if it's for you. But once you start that cultivation aspect of it, man, it does. It's like it seals the deal. The way how you feel about cannabis at that point, it's completely different. But for you, man, it had a deep impact and that deep. It seemed to me like that. Those roots grew strong and deep quickly. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to get to. It seemed like those roots in you took off fairly
You
quick
know,
and deep.
most things in my life are pretty profound, I would say, like uh, pretty intense. But I think we all have that love relationship with cannabis because it's one of those few things that, again, it won't destroy your life. It's not like drug use with like pharmaceuticals or heavy drugs. It's a compassionate, soft, comforting. Um, I don't know. We all develop that like unique love relationship, and it's interesting that mothers that have never consumed cannabis, when they nurse a baby, they pass cannabinoids on because that keeps the baby's feeding cycle regular. And it's just a natural occurrence in our bodies. And I look at the fact that if we were men walking through the forest and we came upon cannabis, we would be very intrigued. Even if we didn't know from our buddies that, dude, you should light that shit up after you dry it out and you could either make hash or smoke flower, but you would be intrigued by its appearance. And once you smelt it, like, holy wowzers. And so cannabis is one of those things that's, wired into us to start. And as long as you can manage yourself and, not blast yourself with dabs all day long, although I've seen people that can do it and function just fine. I'm not one of them, but uh, I don't know, it's just such a special, unique plant flower that you can smoke, and it's like a baby blanket. You just love it. You never want to let it go. Mm. So, let's see here.
So, what was that first grow looking like? Obviously, you say the one light. Was it initially a super soil beginning?
So the first grow that I ever did was under 1,000 watt HPS parabolic iHortolux lamp. I was fortunate enough to have worked with a friend of mine, as far as just, we helped each other locate smoke. Let's just put it that way. And he came to me one day needing help finding somewhere to store and dry something, and I helped him find that place. And I realized at that time that he was a farmer. I was like, oh, what's all this stuff that you've got? And it wasn't a super soil grow. It wasn't until I had met Sub that I had worked with super soils, and at the time I was using like advanced nutrients organics lines like the iguana juice and Mother Earth Super Tea and some of their bacterias. But it was a pretty modest grow, and my first two cultivars would have been Super Silver Haze and Strawberry Cough from my buddy. I'd been smoking them for years, and my buddy kind of showed me a little bit of stuff, and so I had a sliver of an idea of like to keep the soil moist. And I didn't have any gardening experience at all, and like not with my parents growing up or anything like that. So I really had to teach myself, and I learned on my BlackBerry Storm. There's a Zoomer mystery. What's a Storm? Like, God, the original click screen. Like, hey man, reading this little tiny phone all these grow logs and stuff that people had put up. And so my first grow was decent. Like the weed came out. I couldn't believe it. I saw these flowers and I cut them off and I dried them and I was just like, wow, that's really incredible. Like, is it real? Like I've seen weed in bags before, but like I cut it off that thing and I dried it and I smoked it and I got stoned and I was like, wow. So that's how you do it. And you know, the best thing that the first person that ever taught me anything said was it's got to be perfect. You've got to do everything perfect. And perfection is a practice more than it is a trait, right? So we just constantly try to work on the little things and make sure that we're not leaving things to I'll get it tomorrow. So and my carpentry experience allowed me to build rooms as I progressed that were very equilateral and properly laid out, and allowed me to be able to, frame any kind of contraption I needed to hold lights and filters to the ceiling and have ducting running however I wanted it. And that was the cool thing about Sub. I mean, he had HVAC experience his whole life, so he knew how to keep a room dialed and cold and really perfect. And Sub could grow some fucking fire too. Like I'd met a lot of gardeners in my life, and back in the day, you didn't meet too many people that just had dialed rooms. And with his soil and his efforts, man, I saw absolute fire in his gardens. The Santa Rosa house that had some beautiful flower. Let's see. Trying to read some of these comments. It's hard with the cell phone.
So definitely being able to grow up, start over there at the West Coast, man. You seem like you were able to uh, make a good start with the right folks right from the get.
I was lucky. Like, there's a lot of people. I've even seen a few of them running their mouths in the chat. That's fine. When I left TGA, we'll get to that after. I guess when I first met Jinx Proof, we got along really well, and there's some people that misunderstand that relationship that kind of soured between him and I. And my wife, before we were married, but we would go to his house and hang out with his son and his wife and other folks from TGA, and we were close. And then Robert had his first seizure, which was a really scary day. And after that, he didn't look at me the same. I can remember the first time I saw him after that day, and he didn't really recognize me. And he was like, my wife's telling me that I should hug you, but I don't, it makes me really uncomfortable. And because that would have been normal practice, I hugged everybody because I try to be a meaningful friend. And things went really well in the beginning, and there was jealousy and things. Like, I'm naturally talented and some people don't fucking like it too fucking bad. Sorry, I'm good at what the fuck I do, and some people just can't fucking handle that, and not my motherfucking problem. So when I left, things were really cool between Sub and I, and then people started running their mouths and saying all sorts of things that I would have never said. And so things, it was really good exposure to a lot more than just growing cannabis and getting my name out there. And, before Sub passed, he and I had definitely rekindled our relationship, probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 years before he passed. But things were really cool at first. It was amazing to see the dynamic, and as more people get involved, more personal interests get involved, and TJ had a lot of things tugging on it, from a lot of different people. And it was amazing back in the day, and there's one thing I can say about Sub is he loved Jill, man. I hope she knows that. Out of all the things I can say is that guy loved her
Which she
unconditionally.
does.
And that was like, you know,
Uh,
I always found great honor in that. Like, things get tough when you're in relationships, and you know, outside of the bigger picture of what might have gone on, I know what true love looks like, and I that's one thing I always remember about him. It's just how torn his heart was because just man, does he Sub really loved Jill so much, and um, I have a pipe that Jill gave to Sub when they first kind of met. Sub gave it to me in LA, gave it to my wife actually, and that's one of the few things I still have. I've got like some of like the old hats that he made originally, like the original TGA hats, the fancy little weed nerd pins, or I guess they were in the TGA hat pins when that became super popular in the industry. But that pipe's always a reminder of that love is just so damn strong. I don't know who I was talking about that with not too recently, but something that always takes me back and always just kind of quiets my mind is those kind of things. And so, you know, TGA was crazy at times, and it was really awesome at times. And um, some people said some pretty fucked up things about me, and I just took it as it was because you know it is what it is. They want to say what they want to say, and me getting all riled up about things isn't going to help anybody. And like I said, Seb and I had a falling out. I think he was upset when I left, and so we had a few years where we didn't talk. And then we literally, I went to go find him at his booth in 2015 at the Emerald Cup, and he wasn't there. I waited around for a while. He wasn't there, so I decided to leave. And I think I was telling you, I like, I'm standing back from the booth a little bit, just waiting, and I turn around to leave. Bam! Sub and I like run right into each other, like face to face. And he looked at me like, "Oh fuck!" And I just immediately grabbed him and hugged him, and that was a really crazy moment in our relationship because I genuinely think we had a very brotherly connection, and you know, I was really lucky to just meet him. Like you know, like you said, it was a year after I started gardening, I met Sub, and he took a liking to me and was kind enough to put me on the weed nerd, and man, just how fortunate, you know. And like I said, I went from being somebody that was unknown and didn't really have a lot of friends or that was like super connected in the cannabis game, and it was still very infantile at that time, but how lucky, you know, to meet somebody that was so motivated and so well received. And yeah, so sorry, I'm trying to read some of these comments again. Ready to get glasses, holy shit. Um, some of these comments, it's really cool to see that there's this community still raging and everybody's commenting and talking to each other. That's the greatest thing. Like you guys have to understand. So like I would go to cups. You know, I'd go to like we do the Seattle Cup or we would do the LA Cups and the San Fran Cups, and I would get to go and be, you know, Sub kind of let me just do my own thing at the Cups. And what I did is I'd stand on the outside of the booth and weed nerds recognized me, so I would talk to them, and then I would bring them directly to Sub. So there'd be a mountain of people out front of the booth, and I would get to go and like part seas and bring somebody that maybe was too shy or whatever. So it would be like a live version of this chat with Sub Cool sitting there at the booth, and like dude, it was so cool and so amazing. And so to see like chat and that you guys still talk to each other and that everybody's still excited and that like Sub Cool lives on through that. And, you know, because it's really that energy, that fun and that passion. You know, it was so great to see the 45-minute Weedner new episode on your notification. And so it's really exciting to see you guys talking and still carrying on. You know, I walked away from a lot of things for a long time, and here you guys are like having the most fun ever. This is really cool.
You know, and like I honestly give him big props and all credit for this, man. This is used to be all of our favorite times, man, when he would do this. Come on and hang, just like you said, he'd rock out, fucking, we'd just talk and fucking talk with him. And man, it's nice. And the one thing I do love about these conversations, brother, is not only are the folks that are new growers, and there's a lot of them here. There's a lot of them here, brother. There's a lot of new weed nerds here that were new growers since he's passed on, and he found this show from one way or another and heard us talk about some cool. And you know what the awesome thing, brother, is? They know some cool from all these great stories. They don't know, anything else. And it's awesome to introduce them because a lot of them will go back and watch a lot of the old episodes, a lot of his old stuff to see what the fuck we're talking about. You know what I mean? How this whole thing came to be. And they are most definitely new weed nerds every day. And it's awesome that his legacy is being carried on in
That's really
many,
sweet,
many
man.
ways.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting to see as the country becomes more cannabis friendly and that there's all these new gardeners like we were talking about the mounding. You know, my hashtag on Instagram is we mound round here. And the mounding technique is, God, dude, I saw it in 1997 in a high times, but it was a little bit different than I did it. And a lot of people are pretty soft with their soil. Um, but the mounding technique is like imperative. If you really want like plants that are going to drink like savages and you're going to direct the water to where the drinking roots are, then the mounding is super critical. And a lot of people have no idea what I'm talking about when I'm like, do you mound? And they're like, fuck is that? So we should do some kind of like show where we can talk about um you know, like I saw someone saying that I used to use the advanced on top of super soil, and that is true to some degree. Like I would use the fish on top of like a lightened super soil because generally what we would do, and I made like these diagrams back in the day, like so there was the potting soil, the TGA potting soil, and then the super soil, right? Green and the black bag. And so we used to put super soil on the bottom until we started using enzyme. And then all of a sudden there was this nutrient flush like all over the floor. You could smell it. And so thankfully we always used pond liners, so it was easy to clean up. But so we'd put the super soil on the bottom. We realized it was a huge mistake. So we started taking and putting only potting soil on the bottom and a little bit of potting soil on the top. And then the top layer and the stuff we pack around the outside would be the super soil. And so we would kind of play back dial it back a little bit to use the fish because those that use fish within their program, you already know the flavor and the aroma and the oil production is intensified big time. And so, you know, there's a lot of different questions that new growers have, and there's, you know, bullet points that someone like myself and other people that have been doing it for a long time that will tell you how critical it is to overwater and to underwater and how imperative it is to learn those timings and So we could do shows like that too for some of the guys that are new and people that, and when people do things differently, when we talk about it and it's in the comments like, well, hey, I do it like this, that's also good because steel sharpens steel, and that's how it's how we get better. So, we can do all sorts of question type things, and I'm happy to do as many shows as I can to help people get a understanding of maybe someone like my technique. I'm not the best. I'm just a guy that loves growing good crystally weed and crystals. That's so eighth grade, and I still say it. But yeah. So okay. Somebody's saying I'm quiet. Wonder if I can turn up. I probably just need to talk louder. Honestly, a lot of people say that I'm too quiet. Yeah. Hopefully, you guys can hear what I'm saying though. It's probably because I'm not smoking my joint. Okay, so people are saying that I'm not loud enough. If I try to speak up a little bit, hopefully maybe I can turn. Let's see here. What can I do that's all fancy sciencey? Maybe if I put this like that. Anyway, yeah. So, uh, I've been through the game long enough to see that there's those few things that matter, and so any kind of subject shows we could do, I'm happy to, come on and chat it up and smoke that joints, and it's really cool, like I said, to see all you guys talking and still doing your things. Let's see here. It was definitely the joint. Yeah. Now I'm caught up on the chat too, because like I was way, way, way up there. So not technologically sound, but anyway.
Shit. We got there's actually, I don't know if you can see, but there's actually 91 watching currently, hanging out with us, listening in on the chat.
That's awesome. You guys are funny.
So
Yeah, I have not done something like this really before.
hey brother.
Is your mode near your mic? I'm on a phone. I don't. Okay, just so everybody knows, when it comes to computers and stuff, fuck. I bought one computer in my life, one, and that was about 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and I couldn't figure out how to turn it on. Like I literally did not know where the on button was. Apparently, it was on the keyboard. I was looking around the sides, and my wife had to turn it on, and at that point I realized I was outmatched, and the computer won. And so I don't use a computer. I use a phone for everything, and yeah. So, gosh, I know how to do these. I can roll joints really good. I can build houses real nice. I can cut lumber like crazy and do some gardening, and you know, but computers and me, I wonder if I get like an external mic thing that I can plug into the headphone and put on my shirt, if that would help.
Usually like
'Cause-
headset, like if you just use a like some cordless,
like one of
would
those
be
game
earbuds
headsets.
usually work. No, just like the earbuds. That's all I got.
Oh, so you're talking about just like headphones with the little mic thing down here. Okay,
That, or
I could
yeah,
probably
you
do
can
that.
even do the wireless ones. You know what I mean? That those work
My
as
wife
well.
would kill me if I used the wireless headphones. I'd be in so much trouble, dude. Oh man, my wife would stomp me out. So
uh,
I gotta be careful. I married the right one, but she's one of the few people that can come at me and actually means it. I'm like, oh my God. Not that I'm like, unapproachable or tough guy or anything, but my wife knows exactly how to put me in my fucking place. And I love that and I hate that about her. Yeah. So
I actually can hear you well right now. Phones are weird like
that's
that, but
because
your volume
I'm
is
actually trying. I'm speaking at the mic. As you can see, I'm no longer I oh my gosh. Oh man, just Zoolander with the colored Apple computers. That's me. So, yeah. So I don't know if anybody has questions about stuff. You know, I've got a bunch of stories about sub that I could tell. You know,
What led tell us about the first breeding experience. Tell us about Sonic Screwdriver, the first couple of creations.
so I didn't make anything for sub. When I basically when I left is right when the whole 9 pound hammer came out, and you
13.
know, I had selected some males from that, but because things ended the way they did, I just didn't want to move forward with anything at that point, because it was just like, you know, it ended pretty quickly after that. And so then I worked with the guys at Gage Green for a while. That relationship did not end well. And my first breeding experience was with them. I basically had been in the motions of making seeds already, and I had selected some endobreath stuff. I made a bunch of seeds there, and that's really where I started making more seeds. Is when I came upon an opportunity. I got a space that was big enough to flower and have a breeding area within the same facility, and I never really intended to be on my own as a breeder. And then after a while, when you amass the library that I did, and you have all these super heady, rare clone only cuts, and you have, in my personal opinion, I know how to select superstars. I know what I'm looking for, and I built lines based upon integrity and vigor, because fire is pretty hard to not have these days. But you know, I knew a lot of people that made seeds, and through my time with Sub and the other guys working in the industry, I met a lot of people, and so I was able to make connections, and I was fortunate enough to get a bunch of cuts. And then I started to understand what was the outcome of breeding as far as progeny, and what led to what. Why did you want to have certain traits in a male, and how did that land on certain females? So it really became about how to mix things without deviating, or if you're trying to create new hybridized flavors, then knowing how to achieve that, and what kind of selections to look for. So breeding was like when I would frame houses, and I went from learning how to build floors and walls to learning how to hand cut a roof. All of a sudden it was a more technical format of what you're already doing, and there was things that were consistencies, and then there was inconsistencies. And so learning that, and coming to learning your timing of pollination, and the things that Sub taught me was, you know, to delay your male a little bit on certain crosses, because if the male pops too early, you don't want to pollinate until day 23, 27 is kind of that window for me, is if you want the biggest, best, and most plentiful amount of seeds. So, you know, and in my opinion, it's all about male selection. A lot of people make incredible feminized seeds these days. And hopefully I'm not too quiet. I'm probably too far away from the mic again.
No, I can still hear you pretty well, my friend.
Okay.
We're doing well. We're doing good.
People are saying they hear good things about Elon's Musk. That's a funny one. It's a really good cross. I mean, it's basically Gelato 33 with my menthol diesel cookie, fantastic superstar Duwamish diesel, and it's called Elon's Musk because we all saw him go on Joe Rogan and smoke weed, and I was like, well, if you were standing next to him in the elevator after that show, he might smell like weed. So it was Elon apostrophe S Musk. So Elon's Musk, a play on words, and that one yields like huge. It's really nice. Yes, and Miranda family is entering it into a competition. Hopefully he takes first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. But yeah, breeding was an interesting thing. I just kind of, it was not something I can say that my life, I never planned to be in the business like this. I never planned to know all the people. I was definitely I didn't have any kind of social anxiety as a young man. I just wasn't confident. And then all of a sudden, when I met Sub, and I had to walk the walk right away and talk, talk the talk easy, but I had to like become comfortable really quickly. And God, was that a change? Oh man. So, breeding
You know,
20.
one thing I'd like to say about Sub though is, man, as long as I knew that cat, every chat I ever had with him always left me feeling like I just fucking talked to like a fucking rock star and shit.
That was the one thing about Sub. And like, there's some people that are like I said, putting on airs, and Sub Cool was not that guy. He was somebody that was legitimately everything that you thought he was and everything you hoped he was. And like, and probably then some. I mean, most people don't know that they're seeing the watered down version of his mania. Like, you know, maniac, really close to perfect definition. Like, the dude was intense. The dude was always ready. And like, I was always amazed, man. Always amazed seeing his work ethic and how magnetic, and like you say, that rock star type attitude. Because the first time I met him, again, dude, I didn't fucking know anything. I was fortunate enough to meet Jinx Proof through Craigslist. I think he was just selling a few seeds there before like the dispensary thing became big, and so he and I met, and then I met Sub. And the first night I met him, I was just sitting on the couch by myself with my buddy from Germany. He was like, where we are? And I was like, oh yeah, we're all good. And this dude comes out with, like I said, with purple glasses and this green hat and this trench coat and this crazy purple shirt. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's like definitely Sub Cool. Like, not just some random guy that you find out later, oh, that's Sub Cool. Like, you can't help but that he's right there. He's man, what a crazy dude. And so we have these few tribute strains we made for him. This one is called Subsonic Sherb. It's my time rec cut from like 2013 or 2012, crossed with Vanilla Sherb. Very, very, very nice. And then the other one we made, like, he used to do the Cannabis Hunter, his Cannabis Hunter. That was the crocodile eye. So he always used to say, hey, crocodile eye, you could spot the cannabis. And so that's the Killer Queen cut that I got from Sub in like 2011. And that's crossed with our Duwamish Diesel. And so we made these tribute strains, and there was another one wine press that made its way around. But those ones will be freebies, and we'll have them at geneticsupply.com. They'll be part of, like, buy a pack, get those for free, because we don't want to charge for the tribute strains. We want to give them away, and it's so weird to like make stuff like that knowing he's not here. Like, no overly emotional, like, oh my god, but in the literal sense, it's odd to be making stuff like that for that purpose, because I have these cuts that were part of the stuff we were doing back in the day, and it's really fun to be able to share it. And it's just crazy that Sub's gone. It's again, he was such a heavyweight in the industry as far as just all the stuff he did and what he brought to the table, and icon. Like, he's one of the few people you can make the comic book looking character that he did, and it totally makes sense. So anyway, man, my joint's getting small. This is a sad day. It sucks when it hits halfway, but when it's down here, you know.
You threw that together in like no time, too, by the way. Man, I think that's fucking amazing that you've thrown together some strains in mind with him. It's really cool. It's really cool. I'd be
It
happy
just
to
had to be
grow
done type thing.
either. It's fucking cool, man.
We,
It's really cool.
I used to have the blood wreck, and we were gonna make a few things with that, but that thing was just so sensitive and angry all the time. One of the few cuts that well water would make her freak out. Like, oh my god, if you did not have like really, really filtered water, the blood wreck was like, no. you know. But oh, you know what I can show you? This is a good Spliff story. This is a really good Spliff story. So we would go to the Oregon Country Fair, you know, for years and years and years, and we had some really good friends from Dragonfly that were kind enough to bring us along to the pre-fair parties. So we got to know all these hippies and all these rad people, and really just wonderful artists and talented people. And so we were smoking this huge joint one day. It was this just 7 gram super bomber, and we were down to like the last bit of my joint, and I was so bummed because it was getting hot, and I was gonna throw it out because I was like, man, I need to roll another joint. And this dude that had been tripping all fucking night, dude, comes up just like this hippie voice, like, hey, bro, don't put that out. I'm like, oh my god, I don't want to smoke it down to the filter tip. He's like, you don't have to. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you've never seen the trick? And at this place I am known as Spliff. And so this dude's like, Spliff doesn't know the Spliff trick. And so he shows me this trick. Like he takes the joint and he puts scissors in it, right? And he pulls the filter tip out like a half an inch. And now there's this half-inch gap of air between the end of my joint and the filter tip. And so now I can smoke that shit all the way down, and it's quite a few more hits. And so that little bitch inside me that's like, I want a new joint. Well, you'd be surprised how often this fills that gap and makes me quiet down and be like, okay, I feel better about myself. So this dude Spencer showed me the Spliff trick where you pull the filter tip out the back so you can continue smoking your joint without hitting that paper, and life is good. I just inhaled a little bit of weed, but you know, what are you gonna do? Chug it down with some coffee.
I can dig it, man. We were just talking about that the other night, man, about smoking it uncomfortably down to the filter. You know what I mean? That there's but that completely solves that shit.
Changer, man. Like when I saw him do it, he okay, like I said, he'd been tripping all night, like heavy. So when he saw my reaction of like, oh my god, did you just like, dude? It's like he turned inside out. I was so impressed. So yeah, and he said pull out. Of course, there's somebody that's gonna say that, but yeah, like literally when I saw him do it, I was like, oh wow, and a profound day in my life to see that, you know. So there's little things, little tricks along the way in life that you see. You're just like, wow, oh man, my 2.5-year-old's going off on me out there.
There's lots of people besides me that are digging that shit.
Man, I mean, now if you don't roll with the filter tip, you can smoke it all the way down. But personally, I like filter tip. It acts like a carburetor, and definitely gives you something stiff to draw upon. And I know somebody's going to make that awesome thing in the comments, but like it just allows you to hit the joint a lot harder, and then at the end you can have the trick take place, and you're like, damn, look at me. And people at parties are like, wow, you're a genius. And then you have to take full credit for it and tell them that you invented it and nobody ever taught it to you. So that's your moment. So I can remember this conversation I had with Sub. I was at his house in Cali, and he and I stayed up late. Just I was smoking weed, he was drinking and smoking weed, and he had this little spot in his kitchen with this little fan that was like there was a stove hood up above, like a vent hood, and then there's this one in the top of the tile. We had smoked a hash pipe there. It's a beautiful little house he had down there. Um, but anyway, so we're up late talking about. I was asking about like Blunt, like Danny Boy, because he had passed, and I didn't really know anything about him, and I don't know how we got on the conversation, but he was talking about this time he went to his house, and he just like it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. He was telling me that Danny Boy was a good carpenter and had some friends that helped him design this room. And Sub came to his house. It's like, all right, Sub, you're Mr. Grow Master. Like, find my garden, scour my house, find my garden. And like, Sub's like, I'll be damned if I didn't look for like 2 hours. And I think there was a money bet on whether or not he could find it. And they like go downstairs into the recreational room, and he goes up, he can't find it, so Danny takes him downstairs, and he's got this bookcase set on super heavy hinges, and like you go up and you move something, and then you can turn something and unlock this wall that would then open, and like it opened up into this 8 light bloom garden. And like, I can remember some telling me, he's like, dude, it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I was just blown away. Like you couldn't even tell, like trim comes off the wall around the bookcase and all this stuff. So you would never see any like overlap or reveal lines or anything like that, as a carpenter, you would expect to see. And it was like floor to wall or floor to ceiling type bookcase. And, you know, he's like, man, it was one of the most covert, sneaky things I've ever seen in my entire life. There's no way anybody would ever be able to find this place. And it was all like sealed. As soon as the door closed, you could hear it like seal. And he was telling me this like super long extended story of it. But I always remember that night because it was a heavy night too, because he told me about the passing of Danny's wife, which was a crazy moment in Amsterdam there overseas when he passed away. But anyway, yeah, man, so many cool stories and so many stories of him coming up in the industry and being blown away. I remember him telling me of him getting arrested in, I think it was Gainesville or something. He said he was sitting inside and he saw a bunch of dudes running by the window with the curtains drawn, and he knew he was fucked. He said he'd hear cops talking. They kicked in his door, and he was just like immediately laid on the ground. And the way it's not a funny story, but the way he told it was, dude, killed me, absolutely killed me. Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to read some of the chat. See people talking about Mel Frank. That guy's a great writer. Very easy to understand. It's hard to digest some of the stuff that's out there because it's just so deep. But yeah. For anybody that's looking for any of my older work, like I'm not been breeding super long, but 6 or 7 years. Neptune Seed Bank has a lot of our stuff and incredible freebies all the time. We're now working with Genetic Supply to do some of the new stuff, and the tribute strains from Sub will be there at Genetic Supply. You can follow our work on Instagram. I ran into a situation this year where I had to be super humble and like reach out for help because I'd come across issues in the garden and physical issues with my knees and my back that I just put me in such a brutal spot, man. And so I've been I've been off Instagram for a couple of weeks. Usually I'm pretty constant there, but it's crazy how life can change. And from my experience, it never hurts to be humble and pray. And yeah, so I'm always wanting to help. I'm always wanting to pay it forward, and I would love to do anything we could as far as shows to help educate. And I've got stories for days, but I've also got experience working through a lot of garden issues myself. I've been there, and I'm happy to help people with what I know. And I don't know everything, but I definitely have a way about doing things. And if you want lots of them resins and lots of that plant smell, then I got a few things to teach.
Well, I'm glad, and we will most definitely take you up on the offer, my friend.
Yeah, I'm available, man. I mean, especially because I know that now that I see kind of what you guys, I had no idea that a show like this was going on, and it's so rad. I mean, because there's so much as far as social media is always growing, and there's so many different avenues of everybody's different interests. But yeah, this is definitely really cool to see. I think it's just so great to see, and I don't know, Sour Sage Ep2, hell yes, Sour Sage is fire. It's just nice to see a community, right? Because that's really Sub loved the fact that there was an army of people that had each other's backs, and I've seen a lot of weed nerds do really great things for other weed nerds and also people that aren't. But it's a nice community of people that seem to scratch and have each other's backs. And I think that it's like a very, because there's always circles of people that there's a lack of integrity, and I seem to see that does not exist in these kind of circles. Like what Sub left behind, if you were super close to the inner circle, then there's always going to be drama. But the outer line fan base and people that would have been the extended family, like that's where the real love and real community is, and people that are there for a genuine interest in, the bigger picture, I guess I should say. So it's just, yeah, I'm really glad to see this. It's freaking rad. Hmm. Yep, yep, yep. I don't know if anybody has questions or anything, but uh I can go and talk and talk and talk and talk.
So let me tell you a
whatever.
little bit more about what goes on here, buddy.
Yeah.
So basically, we do this every night. Most nights when I can get a guest, which I've done a pretty good job so far. So,
Looks like
but
it, dude.
so I hang out with whoever I can find. I try to spotlight as many great people in the cannabis community as I can. And to me, if you grow one plant in a closet or you grow, large scale growing, it's all the same to me. You know what I mean? You're the same cannabis badass in my book. You know what I mean? So
Let me tell you this, man. So
I
here's insight into that really quickly. There's people out there that wish they have these huge fucking luxury ultra gardens. That shit ain't no fun except for the dude that's running the place or the dude that owns it. Now, gardening sure is fun on that large scale. You've got all the bells and whistles and all these dope lights and vapor systems and all this dope controller and amazing plumbing, and it's not yours. And I've been in those situations where there's 800 light indoor grows and giant, now I don't have a lot of experience outside. I'm from the Seattle area, so it is what it is, but I've seen huge grows. It's a lot of work. There's so much on the line all the time because once you get to scale, you have scale size bills, be it power or plant food or whatever you're designing in your soil. And there's so much that goes into those huge grows. The people that have 8 lights or less, maybe 12 lights or less, say that's a fair size bloom. As soon as you get bigger than that, it becomes about production and money, and it doesn't take away from your love for it at all. I'm not knocking anybody that's doing 20, 50, 60, 80, 100, 5,000 lights, but my point is, for you new gardeners, you'd enjoy it more in the beginning because it's so much about the fascination, right? And fascination often leads to obsession, and obsession unmanaged, that's where the game changes. And so it's like the difference between, you know, meeting your lady and then getting married. The dynamic changes because all of a sudden there's like real shit on the line, right? It's no longer playful. And not to say that it isn't, but marriage is a very serious union. And so, like, things definitely changed, especially when I had kids. And I feel like that's how it is with employees. So once you get a big garden and you've got all this stuff going and all these people that are working for you and packaging and all, oh my God, the love of cannabis is home grows. And for me, that's really what it's all about, is personal gardens that fuel, a local small neighborhood. So, I just, from experience, want to make that point that I have seen what it takes to maintain these huge grows, and definitely there's people that can do it with their eyes closed, but there's a lot on the line. And having a small personal garden is the love relationship that that's a story that can be told over and over again, as human and his plant, and pretty plant, so nice. And the first couple of times, it's everybody's first grow is fire because they didn't overthink it. And then the next grow, they're like, ooh, what could I do better? So, yeah, God, I hope I'm loud enough. I really apologize. I'm way too soft spoken, and yeah. So sorry to cut you off and put that in there, but I think it's an important point.
No, no. It's cut me off at any point. I'm here to hear what you have to say, my friend. They listen to me babble every night. They listen to me fucking
Fair enough.
babble every
Fair
night.
enough. Yeah. I've seen it. I've seen a fair cross section of how you can get lost within this modern cannabis game, and like there's people that are always going to be better than you, and if you're looking to change things to be more effective or more efficient, that's okay. Being better at things isn't always what it's about. I mean, I shouldn't say that, but my point is you don't have to necessarily give a fuck what somebody else thinks. If you love growing herb, and you definitely have to be honest and realistic with yourself when it comes to, creating new crosses and this and that, or what you're growing and how you're growing it and why you're growing it. But like, don't take the fun out of it, because gardening is awesome. Listening to music or your favorite podcast or something on, your favorite news app or whatever while you're gardening and just doing your thing, very awesome. Meditative, sure. Uh, Busy work and something that you greatly love. And I love gardening. I love doing what I do, and I could always be doing it better. I could definitely be somebody that, could be using a fully amended soil these days. I'm using things that are partly amended, and so I still feed fish, and I use a monosilicic acid from Aptus. Aptus is absolutely incredible. For anybody that doesn't know, hit me up on Instagram. I'll teach you a little bit about it. You don't have to use it all, but Aptus has some amazing products. I definitely still use iguana juice. Advanced had kind of dropped the product and then picked it back up again to re-release their lines, and the current formulation of advanced nutrients iguana juice, I love it. There's some people that don't care for it. I love it. I will always use it. It's something that time and time again is just excellent. Love the Organics Alive. Malibu Compost is another company I work for, and so I'm always doing as much as I can. And man, I hear a copter. No, it's not for me, but always makes you think. That's another thing, man. I know what it's like to come up in the game when it's not always safe to be in the game. So I've been through it. Some strengths, not all my strengths, but you know. Anyway, um, trying to read, trying to think. I'm definitely stoned, and the coffee is kicking my ass.
Then the cannabis is doing its job, then, my friend.
Oh,
Well,
for sure. It's one of those things that is like,
that was no little joint. That was no little joint.
no, but I definitely, I mean, it's been, what have we been on for, an hour and 20 minutes or something? So long enough for me to put one of those away, no problem. Um, yeah, so
Did
my
you tell us what
experience,
was in it? I
what's
don't
that?
think you ever told us what was in it.
Oh, what I was smoking. That would have been 50% Thin Mint and 50% SFB. Always nice. Always nice. I love cushion cookies together, and um, that's what I think is so funny about our industry. Is, people say, "Oh, cookies is played out, or Kush is played out, or this is played out, or blah 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 blah." First and foremost, I love sour and gas. Sour is my shit, and different forms of it, sour Kush. But smoke and grow what you love. Forget what all the people have to say. I mean, there's a lot of opinions out there. I definitely have a bunch of stuff that I do not care for, don't want to smoke it, don't want to grow it, don't want to breed it. And stick to the stuff that you love, because if you don't stick to what you love, you're not going to be a specialist in an avenue with an actual vetted particular taste for something. And if you don't have that kind of angle going into it, then are you creating something that somebody that desires that flavor is actually going to like if you're not crazy about it yourself? So, it's definitely okay to like go outside of your lines, but do what you love, smoke what you love, grow what you love, and um, you know, let people have their opinions. So, you know, so the Organics Alive, I use a couple of the different stuff, and they make an amazing humic that's like 25%. I think the highest rating you can get is 20. They make a couple of different powders, and they're different than anything else that's on the market. So the Organics Alive stuff is like organic matter that is digested by bacteria first. And so it's 100% bioavailable in ways that most stuff isn't. They make a product for the vegetative state. It's a 10-2-2, so it's really good straight nitrogen with just a little bit of P and K backing it. They make a transitional product, which is a 4-5-5, and you would use that maybe starting day 10 in flower. And then they make a PK that's a 0, I think it's a 0-8-10. And so you can start using that at like week 5. But their powder line is beautiful organics that's digested by bacterium, and I'm pretty sure a lot of it's pH neutral, but it is incredible. And I kind of cycle things as far as like the fish and something like that, and depending if I'm making seeds, then I might have a slightly more protein heavy diet for the weeks leading up to pollination and thereafter, because seeds require a little bit more love on that. I mean, they'll grow just fine without it, but to get really good strong membrane around the seed and stuff like that, it's important to create a seed that lasts for years if you're not starting it right away. So but as far as the Organics Alive, a lot of their stuff is really incredible, and you can hit them up on Instagram and tell them, hey, Spliff said that you guys might have some samples, because they definitely hook that kind of stuff up, and they will teach you about what they have. But they have great humic, great fulvic. They make a castor bean ferment that's really great for guys that are outside. It helps like cool the cytoplasm on the plant, which is really good for helping it reduce its energy usage. So they make kind of like, they're California farmers, so they have stuff like that. But they make a worm casting that is incredible, and they also make a worm casting vegetable compost. It's called their premium mix, and man, as a top dress, that is some of the most amazing stuff for you guys that are doing like amended soil and veg. Just use a potting soil in that Organics Alive premium mix, and you're good. So I still use Mountain Tech. Yes, Mountain is going from a number 2 to a number 7 generally, and I pack my soil super tight. A lot of people don't know this, but if you pack your soil tighter, you got to think of it like this. Outside of plant, and I'm deviating because I'm reading comments. So the Organics Live, I'll just finish with that. They make like a veg, a transitional powder, and then like a PK type mid to late finisher. And then they made a 0-2-10, because in the last 2 weeks of feeding, you don't want any phosphorus. You really just want to push the potassium to help ferment and get some more robust growth and some weight and some more resin, and that really is where you're going to get that. So they do have like 4 different stages on their powders: the humic, the fulvic, castor bean, the compost. They make a lot of really great stuff. So again, hit them up on Instagram. Really awesome, super knowledgeable guys. So the mounding tech, though, I'll get into it on another show, but I pack my soil super tight. Like, I've always packed my soil tight. The reason being, if you're growing outside, your plant would probably root about 8 feet into the ground, I would assume. And the smart pots, I think that they get wide enough to where they don't need that, but in just natural earth, they will go deep. And so when you're gardening in, a small container that's anywhere from 8 to, say, some of the taller ones at 20 inches of soil, you really don't have that much for a plant to root in and set up. And over time, as you water, you don't want to wash away that top cover that's then going to expose a bunch of your nucleus roots and the crown of that plant. So I will pack my soil super, super tight into a number 2. I do it at keg cup size, and then into a number 1 round, and then into a number 2. And it's from the 2 into the number 7 that we do the mounding, where we'll leave the top of the soil about 2 inches above the transplant fill line in the number 7. And so the purpose of this is 2 things. One, it keeps it breathing all the time, and it also pushes the water out, right? And those are going to be the roots that are actually responsible for drinking, because as a plant develops its roots, the further the roots are reaching, they're looking for water. So if we can get the water diverted to the outside, then that's going to be good for the plant. It also makes it very easy when you water the top of the mound, because immediately the water goes to the outside. You don't have to take any time. You can pour a whole gallon and walk away, and it's going to do its thing. And so as a plant reaches out, it anchors its roots closest to it. And so the ones on the outside are the ones that are going to drink anyway. So you might as well put the water on the outside. But yeah, we also transplant from like a party cake cup size to a number 1 and to a number 2 and then into a 7, because we also try to keep the drying cycle relative to like 2 or 3 days. You can water lightly. I'd rather irrigate solid and have a medium size where the root ball is actually digesting all that water and all that food continuously. So we definitely transplant a lot. But anyway, that's kind of a little bit on top.
I can't help but wonder or want to ask, in the mounting technique, have you ever noticed, because I know I have, and again, this is more my theory than anything else. As I mounded up and I've watered, around the plot, but sometimes I water the mound itself
Mm-hmm.
and expose those roots. Okay. And what I found as I kind of expose those roots little by little, they've hardened off, they've woodened up, and they become their own little, almost like plant or branch. You know what I mean?
You get
They
this
really
spider
harden
thing.
off. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you also get that cool little, knot at the bottom of your plant of the
Yeah.
intertwined roots
I
that are hardened off.
Now, like I said, I pack my soil super tight. Even as you start to get into week 5 and 6, and you've watered that mound over and over, because generally we would pour our water directly onto the mound, so that way it would cascade down and soak some of the center. But you could just pour it on that, know it was good, and you would, no matter what, see that you'd get that like spaghetti wraps around that are like a quarter of an inch thick and hardening off, and that's due to their air exposure and them changing from a drinking station to an anchoring, and they end up becoming a straw as well. But it's really impressive to see. And the one thing I see often is people are not packing their soil in their initial containers tight enough. You really want to be dense all the way through up, so your plant can really anchor. You'll see the stockings and stuff increase in width when you do this technique of packing the soil. And I'm not saying concrete tight, but pack the soil, pack it in the edges, so when you water, the soil is not going to move and create all these issues. So but as we would pack and we'd get into the number 2, you've got a number 2 container. It's super dense. I'm going to turn it over and get the bucket off and go to transplant it. And then we do something called steering wheel, right, where we round the top of the number 2. So this way, as the mound is sitting, it has nice rounded edges. So when I water that mound, it immediately goes to the sides. And I'm on the phone that has my Instagram on it, so I can't look at it. But if you go on Instagram and you hashtag we mound round here, you'll see a video that's probably like 20 seconds long. I think it's in black and white, but it's me watering a number 2 transplant into a number 7 mound, and it's clear as day as like how it should look. And don't be lazy when you transplant. I'm not trying to talk shit, but be exactly centered. Like, do everything perfect. Make sure your number 2s, your 1s, your K cup, everything's packed and solid and tight. You will see a plant that's ready to perform rather than a plant that's like overwatered and pissed off, because if you don't mound, a lot of people end up watering too heavy to the center. You get all this water dragging into the crown and the nucleus of the plant. It can't breathe, it can't process, and mounding is awesome. Like I said, I learned it from High Times. I think it was a Soma article in like the late 90s. And he had like this quadruple mound on top of two more mounds. And, you know, they had just experimented with it. It wasn't like any much further than that. But mounding makes a big, big difference. It takes a little bit of planning, but once you start to do it regularly, you will never stop. It just makes for tough plants. And yeah, I'm watching the delay on the video. It's it's weird to see myself on video again. I used to make so many videos. God, I was on YouTube all the time, and yeah. Aside
So,
from the
the
product,
other thing I like about the mounding technique is it also gives you a little bit of extra charge in the batteries in the flower stage.
without a doubt, and that really comes from the plant being able to perform. Like, it keeps an oxygen rich environment while still being able to wick moisture, right? Because there needs to be that binary system of like being able to metabolize the food, and you know it's, if you were to drink a gallon of water and go for a run, you'd hate your fucking life. So you need to be able to make sure that that plant's going to be able to process the water before drowning it. And it definitely gives you that ability to keep charging forward in flower, because week 5 is make or break. If you're not charging at week 5, cut it early, because it's not going to be what you want. You're going to be real sad. And I get that in my life as well. I don't have every perfect crop, but it's mounding is a really intentional technique that serves a very important purpose. And so I'll try to do some I'll try to get some photos together and stuff that we can use. I wish I could find the diagram that my wife made years ago. It was so good. She was so patient and redid it like so many times, because I was trying to explain how we build the super soil in the buckets as well. But yeah. So where are you, on the east side or the west side of the Mint?
Man, I am almost dead center. Oh man,
Okay.
you're gonna make me do the Michigan thing, aren't you? You're gonna fucking
What's
make me
that?
do the Michigan thing. I'm like right about there in the mid.
I've never seen that. That's awesome. No, I did a lot of work with Aptus, and I was selling out there for a while and taking over the territory for a bit, and so I got to see Michigan. Man, is it amazing! Like, probably one of the scariest places I've also ever been. Like I've been to some tough places. I mean, I've been through Palo Alto, California, the east side of the freeway, not the west side. That was no joke. But when I went to Detroit the first time, holy shit, man! My buddies took me down there at night, and like, they're like, "You want to see Detroit?" I was like, "Yeah." I'm not a stranger to firearms, but when you're in a car and everybody's like, "All right," they get off the freeway and everybody puts a pistol in their lap, and I'm like, "What?" They're like, "No, no, dude, for real. If you don't have the jump on these people, you're fucked." And I was just like, "You're serious?" And then they took me through at like 11 in the morning through some of the tougher parts, and like I could not believe, man, I couldn't believe what I saw. Just like, oh man. But outside of that, I mean, even in Kalamazoo, when I went there, I got off the freeway in Kalamazoo, and there's a dude just walking down the street with a fucking revolver in his hand. I was like, I'm gonna keep going, So it was definitely a shock to be somewhere where, like, even a couple of the grow shops, one of the dudes in of all places, Ann Arbor, this dude flexed on me and told me he's gonna take all my seeds, and I was like, dude, one of the guys working at the shop, I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding. Like, wow. But anyway, Michigan is so beautiful. Like, I could not believe how green the grass was, how amazing the water was. I got to see it in the summer, in the fall, and in the winter. Like, the nicest lawns I've ever seen anywhere. Like, literally the greenest grass I've ever seen. And then I went from a place, is it called Battleground, to God, it would be, I think it was called Battleground, to Grand Rapids. And I went through this like back highway through corn country. And dude, Michigan is so amazing, so beautiful, so many farms, and just a hell of a lot more affordable too than the West Coast. Like, God, dude, you guys can actually afford to buy a house out there. You know, over here, you better have $1 million just to get started. Like, holy shit. So, but Michigan, man, stole my heart. Like, I absolutely loved it. I met some amazing people when I was out there, and what a beautiful state. Seriously, just blew my mind. I've been to a lot of places in the world, and Michigan is something special. You know, it'd be nice if they could get the fucking roads fixed for you guys, but like,
You need to come further north, brother. That's the
I,
thing. Sound like you only made it like halfway up, of not even
oh
like
yeah, yeah, for
uh
sure. I think
69
Clio.
probably. Yeah, Kyle. I actually am from that area. I,
Okay,
that and then moved north like 5 years ago, man. Where I'm at now, I was somewhat city, and then I was Flint for a while, and then went to out further west, and then where I am north. Now I'm in the fucking forest, man. I'm actually in a village now. There ain't even 800 people in the
uh,
village, and
dude,
I'm
for
in like
me,
nothing but forest, man.
I wish. I
So
mean,
it's
I
beautiful up
was
here.
told, my city buddies there were like, there's this place called Lights Out Park where you can go and see all the stars, and like, so we went to Cleveland before we went to Michigan the first time, and we're sitting on my buddy's old boss's deck. He used to work for this hydro shop guy. He's got this beautiful house on, what's the big shallow lake? Is it Erie? That would be in front of Cleveland anyway. So we're sitting on one of the lakes and like on the deck, and it's like dusk, and I'm like, dude, what was that? And he's like, what? I was like, I think there's a weird boat with a light out there. He's like, what? Like, dude, there it is again. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And then all of a sudden there's hundreds of lights. I'm like, are those fireflies? I'd never seen a firefly or a lightning bug ever in my life. Never, ever. And I was like, wow. I, I was today years old when I saw a firefly. So, there was that whole thing. But, Michigan is one of those places where I met a lot of people in different events when I went there that were from like the Upper Peninsula and just the northern part of Michigan. And they're like, dude, you have no idea. It's cold in the winter, but like it's absolute paradise 6 months out of the year. And so I really hope to come back if they would stop all this nonsense that's going on, and then we could travel and come and hang out, because you guys got a hell of a state there. Tell you what, amazing America.
Please do, man. I mean, the cannabis community has fucking really boomed the last few years here in Michigan. Not just,
Yeah,
great breeders, but the community itself is really, uh, I think we're second to none, to be honest with you.
dude.
California and the West Coast has their own thing, but man, Michigan seems to be like a little closer knit for the large state that we
Yeah.
are.
Well, and here's something that's interesting. Earlier I'm like, it's the most fun if you're like, 12 lights or less, so you're not running your ass around. All right. 10 light gardens you see in houses here sometimes on the West Coast. The first time I go to Michigan, the first house I go in, there's like 40 lights in the basement. Like, the basement was huge. And I was like, what the fuck? The next one I went to, 55 lights in the basement. I'm like, where the fuck do you get basements like this? And literally, I saw a lot of gardens while I was there, and there were so many huge, amazing, super productive gardens that were slain. And like you guys got the East Coast, there's endless supply demand there, right? So there's that. But it was crazy to see how intense the Michigan system was. I mean, there is no greater place for salesmen to visit than Michigan because those grow shops, I don't care if it's run by locals or mafia, I've never seen grow shops that size, you know. And so yeah, you guys have got something special there. It's intense. It's amazing. And there was so many cool people at the events, man. It just reminded me of the old days. You know, you guys have got like that, like you said, it's tight knit. And so even like when I went to Clio Cultivation, Buddy runs that place, and he was like really fun and wonderful and throws all these awesome shows, and all these people show up and
Oh,
party. And
he throws down. He puts down a fucking couple of good events a year, and I think that smaller event that he has looks way better than the High Titans Cup that they've had. You know, so much intimate, and you could actually talk. And man, yeah, good guy, great guy. To be honest.
yeah, very fun. And like, you know, it's funny because when I told people I was going up there next, a lot of the different shops are like, "Oh, I don't know, man. He's pretty eccentric. I don't know if he'll like you. He doesn't like very many people." I was like, "Sounds like my kind of guy." And as soon as I met him, I was like, "Oh, dude, you're a breath of fresh air, dude." And you know, it's like I see people mentioning Grow Green. I've heard mixed reviews with them. They threw a really nice show, and they definitely were there. The thing I really liked about Buddy and Clio Cultivation is they threw the party for the sake of the party. You know, they of course had vendors and this and that to make it more of a fun, like high times type event. But like Buddy went all out, and I always had mad respect for that. And
You know,
just
I don't even think it's, to be honest with you, brother. I don't think it's more like so it could be more like a high times event. I think it's more to help out the community. You know what I mean? The people
no,
that are
for sure,
coming
yeah, yeah,
into the stores. You know what I mean? Giving them an opportunity to outlet. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. It just adds that little bit of like it's more than just a concert at that point. Is more of my reason for saying that is it like not only can you buy a joint or a medible or a cool rolling tray or you know score some of the plant food that you want, but there's like a show going on and kids playing and you know, and that's what you get from a deadhead like Buddy. Buddy is a he's a good father too, man. Respect the hell out of that. He loves his kids so much, and I've been a dad for 2.5 years, and what an experience that is. He's a rad dude. So shameless plug. Not wasn't really intending to, but I really have a lot of love for those guys up there. And uh, yeah, Michigan's awesome. I really hope to come back because it is a very special place. Really loving, homely people too. You know, we'd go to restaurants and people like the owner would be there, come up and ask like, "How was everything?" And I'm like, really good." You know, like very personalized and the West Coast is the wild, wild West. Everybody's concerned about things they shouldn't be, and you know, it leads to drama. So, um,
So let me tell you a little story, a little bit here. Uh, Sub actually opened a lot of doors for me here in Michigan for that very same reason, man. I started vending. Well, I was started. Well, what mid 17, 18 full effects repping Michigan here for him, and so basically that gave me so many opportunities to act like a fucking man, a cannabis badass, basically. Man, when I
right,
threw on the jacket and that, went out and tried to get all them stores, same thing as you're talking about, man. Hitting these grow shops, trying to get the fucking gear in these shops, and opened a lot of doors for me. Before I was testing a lot of the gear for it, internet. You know, we nerds knew we through internet. You know what I mean? But it
right,
was when
right.
when I had the opportunity to actually put on that rep title, I got to, run around, meet people firsthand, pass those seeds, fucking hear the stories, the gratitude, you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah,
And
for sure.
all due to him, all due to him, you know what I mean? And
And that's the thing that was really great about. I think there's situations where people are writing coattails, and that's not the situation with working with Sub. It was like you got to be a part of this network that was really at the end of the day driven about passion, or driven by passion, because he was just one of those dudes that loved what he did, and he was able to get people excited. So someone that would have been in your or my position, getting to interact with people that are part of the fan base and people that are genuinely excited about these unique and rare genetic creations and the whole story behind it all. And you know like you say, it opens up so many doors, and you get to meet so many people on a positive front where they're genuinely excited about the work that you're doing. And it was almost like a club, like, and you didn't have to be any special, person to get in. It was just a club based upon, like, I really love smoking weed, and like all these people really love smoking weed, and we get along. And uh yeah, man, Sub is just that dude. He was so much more intense with our people were always internalized himself. That was the part that works.
lost your sound. It's kind of echoey. Maybe tap it a little bit. Phones could be like this sometimes. It's still it's still echoey, but I think it's just sometimes we have to just work through it and it comes back.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Am I just breaking up?
Actually, sometimes it's weird. It sounds like you're talking through like a can. You know what I mean? Like you're
Yeah,
faint
probably
and it's
because
like
of the way.
tunnel.
So the next time we do this, like Jack, that probably I don't know if I
It'll
have.
come. Dog pounces, just smack it. No, don't just smack it. It usually comes back in a few seconds when it does this in particular glitch. Shoot, like I said, I'm still just glad we could make this happen. To be honest with you, and again, thank you to Miranda Family Farms for setting this up. And he actually had a question in chat earlier about how do you collect and store your plant?
I don't ever store and collect people, and I think it's a terrible practice. And there's people that would disagree with me, but like, I'd rather keep copy in my mail. That's a hell of a lot better guarantee. And storing and collecting all. If you have the mails, it would be an acceptable practice in my eyes. I would never leave it up to being able to properly set, dehydrate, and keep it in a. I mean, you better use facility packs and keep that shit dry. So I would want that on my pollination going wrong because I had sterilized moisture or light exposure or temperature fluctuation and all these things cause it to degrade quickly, and it knows how much RNA and DNA replication, that time and things like that. And always use fresh. So we keep this and create like stable stuff. I make sure I keep walking down the month. I can guarantee the same output every single time. And I know how long it takes him to develop sacs and open and all that. And uh, you know, when I pollinate, I shake my male over the top of my ladies. I pick him up and take him for a walk. So no paintbrush, no jars. For those of you that are drying and collecting pollen, I believe Gromer put a post up on Instagram recently about it, but I am not the person to ask about that. I am sure there is a foolproof method, but you know, are you having to keep it cold? Are you having to keep it out of particular temp? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot that goes into it, so I would rather not answer as if I know, because I don't trust myself that way. So I keep males, and so that's how I answer that. Oh, my volume's back up. Good. So, yeah, I probably need to get going soon, because I gotta, you know, like talk to the wife and be a good husband and be a good dad and read books and stuff to the baby tonight. So, do you guys have any questions that we can handle until the next time we can do this, and maybe the next week or two, or whenever I can find time?
So basically, I never got to finish how the show works, but basically every night that we do this spotlight, so as you have to go, soon, the show must go on, my friend. The show must go on. So it goes from 11:30 to 4:20. So basically, how this works is the guests, when they come on, have an unlimited time slot. Some of these shows have went 8 hours, brother. 8 hours.
Oh man. Oh,
I've
that's
had some
awesome.
24-hour episodes, and some of those episodes have all approached the 30-hour episode. but So what happens every night is basically me and the guests start off the evening, and we run with it as far as we can take it. And then whenever that falls out, that opens up what it used to be the rabbit hole, but now is what is known as the wormhole. And the wormhole is open to all prior guests. So when me and you hang up, I'll kind of take breaks, stretch my legs, and then I fire up the wormhole and I'll get it started old fashioned sub cool style. You know what I mean? I'll get
Mm-hmm.
it going. I'll log on, get some music playing, smoke a joint, and usually
Yes.
one by one, past guests file in, and we sometimes, well, we mainly talk cannabis, but we talk conspiracy. We have a few mushroom conversations.
Right on.
It's like a grower's hangout afterwards.
That's a lot of
So
fun.
uh please keep this Zoom link because it's always the same. And
Okay,
now
perfect.
you're always welcome. Any wormhole Monday nights is automatically a wormhole. So like if you want to kind of come on and where there's Mondays is always wormhole. No guests,
Okay,
wormhole. So you can
gotcha.
bank on that. Any other night it's gap. Whatever the gap is. But
Right, right. Well,
nonetheless,
that's good.
you get that notification, baby's asleep in, mama's all tucked in. You want to smoke a spliff and talk with the boys? You've
I
got the
work all
invitation,
night.
my friend.
That's perfect. I work late, so I can get stuff done, you know, packaging and taking cuts and whatever else late at night. I work all night and then get up early, and so and I'm well versed in occult talk and all sorts of what people refer to as conspiracy. That's something that will be talked about very soon. Everybody's going to have a very new opinion on the world here in the next couple of months, aren't they? So, you
Oh
know, there's a
yeah.
lot going on in our world, and it's really tough to, man, what a time to be alive. That's all I can say. So, um, yeah, I'm down to chop it up, and you guys will definitely see me in the comments at one point. Like, you know, I'll definitely watch the show at nights, and sneak into the comments. My name should be Mr. Spliff the Cannabis on the username, so it should be pretty obvious. We can get into all sorts of ridiculous nonsense. Because if I'm drinking coffee and I'm not here telling the story, and I'm smoking my joint and just putting my nonsense in the chat, oh god, I'm a complete. I'm fun to hang out with, but I'm an idiot. So yeah,
That's the fun part of cannabis. That's the fun
Yeah.
part of cannabis, man. Sometimes we get some, man. We have. You look back at some of the wormholes, man. We've had some just outright fun, crazy, deep wormholes that went just off the rails, but were super fucking fun. Super fucking fun.
Especially when, like, you've got, it's not like a nothing better to do. It's like, I want to do something while I'm doing what I'm normally doing. And that was the great thing about the Weed Nerd shows, is you had something to watch while you were hanging out and doing your thing. And so I look forward to it. I think this is a fun experience and something that I'm definitely down to do again. And we can do different themed type things, whenever we can do some thinking ahead or whatever. But yeah, so it's great to be able to tell stories about Sub and to talk to people that enjoy hearing about who he was and what he was, and definitely definitely an amazing magnetic dude. So I will think of some topics, and if anybody has questions, they can always email me at mrspliffofcannabis@gmail. If you're looking for beans, we've got them at spliffslunchbox@gmail, or you can look for me on Instagram. We got all sorts of pictures and techniques, and I teach all sorts of stuff. And don't be afraid to ask questions if you're new to it, because we all started there. And yeah, I'm stoked to just meet everybody. And I'm trying to read while I'm trying to talk, and that can be dangerous. God, I can multitask, but I'm still quite an infant mentally. So anyway, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on and meet you and do this, and Miranda family for linking us. And life is unexpected sometimes, so be ready, because moments come calling when you least expect them. And sometimes that's the best part about life, is it just constantly remains a mystery. And cannabis is a good companion through that journey. So enjoy it. Don't lose the fun. Until the next time, I had a lot of fun. I really appreciate it tonight, and I hope you guys did too.
Hey, man, that is such a great ending. I hate to ask you. I don't even know how to ask you now. I feel like I want to go just go back and clip that one out, but it doesn't have the title in it, so I have to ask you. Shit. I wish I'd known that was coming, because that was a good exit, my friend. But
Well,
basically, what I would do here before you go is like the old school, like radio, like when the artist comes on and fucking, hey, this is fucking Bon Jovi and I'm on fucking 105.5 K Rock. But in this instance, my words, my version, I would say, if I were you, something close to like, hey, this is Eagle and I'm on fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 420. That's the base of it. You can add whatever you want to it after that, before that, after that, make it your own, but it will be kind of your commercial for this episode. So you'll hear this.
gotcha,
I'm
gotcha.
recording now. There we go. Now I'm ready for your soundbite.
All right. This is Mr. Spliff. We are talking shit with Eagle. This is episode 420. We talk about all things subcool and soil and ganja. If you love herb and you need something to do, light one up and come and hang out with us on episode 420. Mr. Spliff and Eagle getting down. Thank you.
Thank
Good.
you again, man. I've been looking for this. for quite long, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again, my friend.
Yeah, dude, for sure. And you know, like I said, I'm happy to do it. I gotta make sure I get the wife taken care of. I did not plan well enough today, and so I'm in trouble a little bit. But you know, everything for my queen, and we'll do some cool shows. I mean, I would love to do some. You know, the numbers aren't like so astronomical that we can't just do awesome giveaways. Like, I just want to share some of the promo or the not the promo, the tribute strains. So the crocodile eye and the subsonic sherb are nothing that I ever want to make dough on. You know, I want to just give them away to weed nerds. I want to give them away to people that would appreciate it, right? So it's like maybe we can do something fun for the next episode. You know, we could like bring on 50 packs and like give them away to people and just have fun. I want to share, and I want to share in the experience and the excitement of it all, because I don't want to ever lose that, because that's like a big, meaningful, awesome part of this. So, yeah, happy wife, happy life. I have some friends sometimes that are like, man, you sure definitely like lay it down for her, and I have to remind a lot of my friends, I asked her to marry me, and I asked her to be my second half. And so if I don't treat my second half as well as my first half, then man, something else. Nothing like devotion to the garden, to our friends, to our family, whatever it comes, and be it to my sweet little blue nose pit bull. But there's no higher, greater thing than love and unconditional love. It ain't easy, but man, is it something else. So with that, I'm gonna check out, and really awesome to do this. I just love to be able to be a part of making things fun, and um, so rad to see you guys doing this, and I'm glad that you have the time to host these things. And so I look forward. I'll get at you tomorrow. We'll chat outside of this, and drum up some cool ideas. And you got my number. You can get at me whenever you want. And so yeah, episode 420. How about that? Not too bad. Not too bad.
I'm proud of it. Proud of it, brother. Thank you again.
Yeah, dude, seriously, my honor. So let's plan to do this here and not too long from now. Within 2 weeks, I'm definitely sure we can get back together, and then you know, we'll just I want to give back what Sub gave to me, which was a lot. So if I can do that by sharing stories and you know whatever, I'm happy to do it. So, and I'll figure out how to like get the camera balanced a little bit, maybe get a backdrop next time with some plants in it, and have some stuff to look at.
Oh, the background. Well, even at that, man, see, backgrounds are like super easy. Even if you didn't want to show backgrounds, like it's like a couple of clicks.
I am
mean,
learning
like you
that.
can change your background like this. Your background can be anything. Your background can be anything.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm working on that, and then I have a lot to learn on that stuff. But sweet, right on. Well, you guys take it easy. Know that it was my honor to be here and to be invited into a tight knit community of awesome people that clearly love each other. And you never know what tomorrow brings, so make sure you show people that you love them. That's why I hug people the way I do. And yeah, with that, you guys have a good night. We'll talk to you soon, and all the best.
Thank you, brother. You guys know the deal. We're gonna fire up the wormhole here in a few minutes, but moreover, random acts of kindness do save lives. You guys hear me say it night after night. Never gonna get me to quit saying it. Thank you, Mr.